Today I am joined by my guest, Emily, who parallels my experience of navigating losing a parent to cancer, as well as a sibling to addiction. In our conversation, Emily opens up about caring for her terminally ill father at a young age, the silence and isolation that grief can bring, and how these experiences have shaped her both personally and professionally. We'll talk about the realities of surviving loss, complicated family relationships, and Emily's difficult decision to choose estrangement in the wake of grief. Whether you're in the throes of grief or supporting someone through it, I hope this episode brings compassion, understanding, and a reminder that you are not as alone as you might feel. And remember, always listen with care. Let's get started. This is Nothing Happens for a Reason. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Claire.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Well, let me give you a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Emily. I am an addiction and mental health therapist in the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Well, I really appreciate you reaching out. So, little background. I mean, Emily and I used to work together, different departments, and didn't know, I think, a lot about each other's personal life. And you reaching out to me after I started this podcast and expressing what seems like maybe some similar experiences. So I guess just to start, what do you think prompted you to reach out to me?
Yeah, I love that you're doing this. As somebody who's kind of felt the feelings and lived in the grief that you talk about and describe through Nothing Happens for a Reason, I've lived with that for over a decade and come to find that a lot of people who haven't been through it don't know what to say or do, and they get very uncomfortable with the topic.
Yeah.
So having a platform to talk about that and educate around that I thought that was so amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
So if you're comfortable, where does your grief journey kind of start?
Yeah, and it's actually, as an adult, I've gained a lot more insight than when it was happening real time. So my dad was a single dad, and I'm the youngest of three. When my parents split, my sister was just about to go to college. My brother was just about to start middle school, and I was 10. Beyond that, probably 2 years later, so I was in 6th grade, my dad got diagnosed with stage 3 liver cancer, not related to alcohol consumption or anything like that, like very fluke liver cancer. And so there was a lot of being told like not to talk about that, having a terminally ill parent. He was a private person in general. He would hate this.
Sorry, Dad.
He was a very private person. And, initially when he got the diagnosis, we were told that he would to go home and get his affairs in order because he would have 3 months. Thankfully, he actually didn't pass away until about 6 years later. I was a senior in high school when he passed away. And I was a month, 2 months maybe, at most, maybe a month and a half, away from finishing high school. And just watching my only parent go through the hospice process and having to go to school and act like everything was normal, right? And try to be a teenager and doing these very adult things. When I got home, we didn't have a nurse in the home or anything like that. So
Do you remember, just backing up for a moment, like
yeah,
you said 6th grade is when he got the diagnosis?
Yep.
So how were you told?
It's funny thing about something traumatic like that is I have a fuzzy picture of the scene, but I can remember like the feelings. And I remember standing in our kitchen, and it was like my dad and my grandma, who was a big proponent in this whole journey too. and myself, and I think my brother, and our dad telling us, like, I have cancer and it doesn't look good. And then my grandma saying, like, no, we're not accepting this, like 3 months
Mm.
left. We're gonna go somewhere else and figure this out.
So did he like do chemo at that point? Is that the direction?
So he went to Mayo Clinic after that and they did surgery. So he got a 2/3 liver resection, which was intense and hard. I was
Totally.
12, so I didn't really understand everything. Obviously, he had to spend a couple days in the hospital. I wasn't used to him not being home at nighttime, all of that. And nobody, even then, I mean, it continued. This was a pattern, but even then, like the adults in my life, like my teachers at school, and they sent me to the counselor when they found out all that stuff. They didn't know what to say or what to do, and at that point, having no emotional intelligence or really knowledge of how to express any feelings, I just bottled it.
You said people didn't know what to say. What did people say? I mean, was it just like literally nothing or was it just not helpful?
I mean, at that point, when he first got diagnosed, like I said, I was 12. My friends were
Mhm.
all, 12, 11, 12.
Yeah, what a hard time.
And so they, like, that was literally nothing, right? Because
Mhm.
even adults struggle with what to say, let alone being 11 or 12 years old. A lot of the adults in my life would say, like, I'm really sorry, and this is really hard, and things that, because I didn't understand what I was feeling at the time, was like, okay, yeah, it is, and that doesn't help the way I feel right now. Which, I mean, I've learned through 12 years of feeling this grief, there really isn't much to say.
Mhm. It's one of those things where, yeah, there's nothing to say that's gonna, like, fix it or
Yeah,
take it away, and the silence is so fucking painful
and loud. The
and
silence
loud.
is so loud.
So loud.
Um, and I saw that. I saw that even when he died. So like I said, I
Mm.
was just about to finish high school, and I had friends literally ghost me after he died because they like did not know. I mean, we're 18, right? So they didn't know what to do, what to say, how to be there. So they just pulled away. And that, I don't want to say that made it worse, but that wasn't helpful.
Maybe
I think
maybe made it worse.
in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Like, I also don't know how helpful it would be to just pretend like nothing was happening, right? Or like,
Right.
so it's kind of a catch-22. And I've found in all of my years that just having people there and willing to show up for me the way I need when I ask for what I need is the most helpful. But at 18, I didn't know what I needed.
No, oh my gosh, and for years, during really formative years, you were dealing with watching your dad slowly
Yeah.
die, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
and so that's a whole other layer of it too.
Yeah. I mean, I had a whole, we had the end of elementary school and middle school and high school. And so, I have friends who are doing extracurricular sports. I have friends who are going on vacations with their families. And then, like, what I did outside of school was trips down to Mayo. And it was
Mm.
kind of a pattern he had where he would, go into, like, after the surgery, he went into remission, and then, like, every year he would relapse and have to have chemo again, and then just every year, once a year, it would relapse until, my senior year when it came back and Mayo was like, "You're not strong enough for surgery again. There's nothing else we can do."
W
So,
were you in that conversation, or did your dad have to pass that along to you?
I don't think I was there for that one.
Hmm.
A lot of times those appointments were during the week because it was a specialty versus just like the hospital or anything. So the appointments were during the week and I was at school. And he very much valued like going to school and kind of that pretending like everything was fine on the,
Mm.
to everyone else, even though it wasn't fine.
So hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard because it like exacerbates this loneliness within the family or within you. Like, we keep this a secret or,
Yeah.
don't let people know your stuff. And so then you're left maybe not even getting, not that you knew you needed, but getting support because you're not supposed
Right.
to talk about it.
Right. Right. And teaching me things that I'm still healing from now at 30, that I learned in my teenage years and early grief, the hyper independence, the make everyone think you can do it on your own. All of those things kind of stem from that.
And I'm just thinking about like how devastating that you said he died like just shortly before you graduated high school.
He passed away on April 14th, 2013, and I graduated June 8th, 2013.
Wow. What was that experience like for you to have this big milestone and be in the depths of your grief?
Yeah, because that was probably the first, big one that I
Oof.
had. And I remember I had stayed at my grandma's the night before, and I wrote him a letter that morning. Like, I woke up and that's the first thing I did and just cried. It didn't feel right, almost like an out of body experience, right? Like, I was there, but I wasn't really there, kind of a lot of dissociation happening. And thankfully at the time, and still, my sister lives in Texas, and so she asked me, "Do you want me to fly to Minnesota for your graduation ceremony or graduation party?" And I said ceremony because it was the first big thing since our dad had passed away. So having her there too, and my brother was there, and that was definitely helped probably the most.
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, your siblings being older than you,
Hmm.
like, where were they throughout all of this in the last few years where you were sounds like doing a lot of the, like, caretaking part?
Hmm. Yeah, so my sister was in college when my dad got the diagnosis. My brother was maybe sophomore year of high school, I think. I have to do math in my head. It's
It's
hard.
the grief math, it's so hard.
It is. It is a kind of all blurs together. In my mind, there's a timeline, but when I have to say it out loud,
Yeah,
that's when it's hard.
I can relate.
And so my brother was there in the beginning, parts of it, and for a
Mhm.
few years during that relapse remission cycle. And then he went to college in the fall of 2010. And that's when I started high school. That was my sophomore year of high school, is when he went to college. And so by the time my dad's death rolled around, my sister had graduated college and moved down to Texas. She did Teach for America. So that's where she was assigned. And my brother was in his junior year of college. Not too far. He was still in Minnesota, but he was probably about an hour or two away at college. And that probably too, like the morning that he passed, I had to make those calls and tell them
Hmm.
that he was gone.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest things too, was having to be the messenger of that. Our favorite person in the world is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so hard, like, people unless people have been through that, I don't think there's a lot of awareness into all the other things that
Yeah.
follow. For me too, like, I mean, I was physically with my dad the night that my mom died, but it was like once she died, him and I divided different people and family and we
Yep.
both made different calls
Yep.
and it's fucking horrible. Like it's horrible.
Yeah. So at that point in time, once my dad went into hospice, my grandma, his mom, actually moved in with us. And so she would care for him during the day when I was at school. And then when I came home from school, she would make dinner, but then like nighttime was my caretaking time. So like I had a baby monitor set up in my room for his bedroom because he was very adamant about like, I want to die in my home. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to die in a hospital. And that the night it happened, every night before that, I was like, tonight's the night. It's gonna happen
Mm.
tonight, tonight's the night. And then the night that it actually happened, that thought didn't even cross my mind
Hmm.
that that was gonna be the night. Despite like in hindsight, there were so many signs. And I don't know how gory gory details you want.
No, what were the signs you saw?
So I have a metaphobia. So throwing up, I go into full blown like fight or flight pain. I have to leave immediately. And he started throwing up. So I left the room immediately. My grandma was in there with him. Seeing it was all blood. It was all blood. That should have been the sign. He couldn't get up out of bed. So like we had to do a portable urinal and that was all blood. And he slept for almost the entire day, maybe two beforehand. And I didn't know what active dying looked like at 18 years old.
No, of course not.
I do now, right? But I didn't at the time. So I didn't know that that was a sign that
Yeah.
he was going to pass. And so after that, I came back in. I apologized for not being able to stay in there when he was puking because I did feel a lot of guilt for that. Like, he was dying and he was getting sick and I couldn't be in there and support him. And I remember telling him that I loved him. And then I said, I'll see you in the morning, Daddy. And I actually went and slept in the living room, which I never did. And my grandma actually like laid down in bed with him just in case he got sick again or whatever. And I must have fallen asleep and I woke up to my grandma screaming that he was gone and had to be her comfort, right? Yes, I'm the child of the person who passed, and that's his mom. So that too, that I can still picture the body and all of that, and I didn't know what happened after that either, right? And so my grandma and I kind of did like you said, what you and your dad did, and split the family members and who to call, and we did the same thing. So she called my grandpa, which is my dad's stepdad, and the coroner's office, right, to send a hearse and all of those tasks that you unfortunately it doesn't just happen. Like you have to do it.
And what was that like for you to be the ones to call your siblings? Because that was
I'm
my
right,
situation too.
right. I mean, my siblings and I were never ones to like talk to each other on the phone. It was a lot of texting and it's 2013, right? I mean, I'm 18, my brother's 21, my sister's 25. So we just were very much in the era of like we text each other. We were just starting to like each other, right? Like,
Yeah,
um,
totally.
and so when I'm calling them at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning, knowing that our dad was in hospice, like I'm sure that they knew. My sister answered. My brother didn't answer. He's probably asleep. 21, 7 a.m. on a Sunday, but he called me back within an hour. And they made their arrangements. My brother was there that day. My sister came. He was either late that night or early the next morning, got a flight out and stayed for, I think they both stayed for about a week.
Yeah. And then it was up to all of you to do all the arrangements and
Yeah, so I learned
make those
so
plans.
much about like funerals and
Yeah.
all of that. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
which comes full circle when we talk about my half brother who passed away. It comes full circle, but yeah, at 18, learning what goes into a funeral and how much caskets cost and all of that. It's pretty messed up.
Had your dad done a lot of planning during the years that he was sick? Or
Um,
were there a lot of things still like up in the air?
so he had made a will beforehand when he got like kind of told by Mayo, like, there's nothing left we can do. We want to
Yeah.
move you into hospice. Like, so he he made a will, so that was taking like all the money and everything, which thank God, like we didn't have to worry about that because
Yeah. Whole other layer for people. Yeah.
yeah. We knew, so I think when, maybe not when he first got diagnosed, but at some point in his illness, him and my grandma had talked and decided and had bought the plot for him to be buried right next to his grandparents. And he grew up, on his grandparents' farm every summer. They were
Mm.
very, very important to him. And so he knew that's where he wanted to be buried. So he kind of knew that already. We had two funerals, which sounds really weird. We had one service at our home church, which was maybe half a mile from our house, and then at the church where he was going to be buried, because a lot of his extended family lived up there up north. So we did like, I just remember how draining that was and exhausting. We did like the wake on like a Wednesday or something like that, Tuesday or Wednesday. And then the next day was the funeral at our home church. And then the next day was the funeral up north, and that's when he was buried.
Oh my
So it was
gosh.
like 3 long, long days of people being uncomfortable.
Yeah, it probably feels like a huge blur looking back too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine that
definitely.
that feels like a I don't even know what happened, who talked to me.
Right. I don't remember this
Mhm.
person saying anything to me or getting cards from people who I'm like, I have no idea who this is, and
Totally.
they were apparently there. I don't know.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I know for me, in both the service for my mom and for my sister, I would just get so exhausted of
mhm.
and on one hand, like, I get it, people are wanting to come up to the family and, you know, offer their condolences or whatever, and it just I was just by the end of for both of them, I'm like, "I don't want one more fucking person to come up to me." Like,
Or try to
it's
give
a
me a hug.
give me a hug
Stop
or, like,
touching me.
yeah, touching me or saying, different platitudes that I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't and, like, as you said with, you know, a different dynamic, but with, like I mean, obviously, your grandmother, it was close in that situation, but, like, I had situations where kinda strangers or just, like, friends or acquaintances, like, I felt like I was taking care of them because they were so distraught, and I was like, "What is happening right now?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, "I just wanna, like, leave." I'm, like,
Yeah.
done. I'm done for the day. I'm just
Yeah.
tap me out. So to do 3 things in a row, oh my gosh, like, I can't
It
even
was a
imagine.
lot. Nobody knows this part of the story other than my siblings who were there. But after that, we start packing up his house because we were going to sell it. It got to a point where I never lived away from my dad at that point, right? Like both my brother and sister had gone to college, they'd been away from him. I had never. So it went from like one day he was there and had been there for the last 18 years that he wasn't.
Mhm.
And it got to a point where I screamed at my siblings, like, I want to kill myself because I saw
Mm,
this had been the last 6 years of my life. My purpose was making sure he was okay. Even before
yeah.
that, when my parents split up when I was
Mhm.
10, I felt like I was very caretaking of my dad. And so
Mm,
I literally felt like life had no meaning anymore because
yeah.
the one person that my life revolved around was not here anymore.
Hmm.
It got very dark
Yeah.
very quickly.
What did they do when it got to that breaking point?
I don't want to speak for them, but I'm sure they were in their own
Mm,
grief.
sure.
And, mental health and feelings and emotions were not something talked about in our family. And
Yeah.
so for them, that was like dramatic and not taken seriously. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
it was kind of played off. It wasn't mentioned
Hmm.
ever again, to be honest with you.
What did you do with those feelings if it couldn't be, like, outwardly supported and cared for and nurtured? Like, what happened with you and your process?
I spiraled quite a bit. Prior to this, at my school, you had to be called in by a parent or guardian. And given the situation, how close we were to the end of the school year, I was given the right to call myself in. I milked that quite a bit
Mm,
out of that last month and a half of school. I didn't go more weeks, more days than I did. Some days were like I just couldn't be around the people. I couldn't handle acting like everything was normal. Like my whole life has fallen apart and you want me to learn this calculus that I don't care about or stand in line for this crappy lunch that I'm not
mhm,
going to eat because I couldn't eat.
mhm.
So I milked that quite a bit.
I guess what do you mean by milked it? Because like that just feels actually just true and
I
like
abused it. I mean,
was it abusing or like was that what you were needing?
some
I
days,
I don't wanna,
some
like,
days,
minimize
yes.
the, like, milking it part, but I'm just
Yeah.
like,
No, you're
was
you're
that
right.
was that happening?
Some days I did need it, some days I didn't.
Yeah.
Some days I just said, "F it, fuck it,
Mhm.
I'm not who cares?" Because,
Mm.
like I said, I literally don't feel like my life has a purpose anymore. All my teachers were obviously excusing me from assignments and projects and all this stuff, so who fucking cares? And I would, sometimes just sleep all day, sometimes go and do stupid shit. I'd go over to my boyfriend's house or go drive around or get
Mm.
into trouble. So at that point, it was about 2 weeks after he passed, I was kind of told, like, you need to leave the house because apparently I wasn't trusted to be there by myself at 18.
Who told you that?
My grandma. And I didn't want to move in with her.
So you were just living alone in this house after your dad died or your siblings were still there?
They were still there. There's probably like a day or two where I was on my own.
That's just, like, heartbreaking.
And I also was given the choice of like, do you want to move in with your grandparents? No, not really. I mean, my grandma was in her own grief. And again, like coming from, I'm going to label it like an emotionally immature family, like that grief came out at me as anger, right? Like everything about me made her angry. Move in with my mother, who I had really no relationship with at this point.
Mm.
She was in her own addiction, and which added another layer of like my life is freaking over because I have two options and they both suck. And then a family friend who I'd been really close with the couple offered to let me move in with them until I went to college, which is wild because they had a 13-year-old, a set of twin 1-year-olds, and four animals. And they're like, here, let's throw a grooving 18-year-old on top of that too. So that's where I moved into.
Wow.
At the time, I didn't understand that sacrifice that they were making and that what they were giving me. I was so thick in my grief. I mean, obviously now, like I know, but at the time I didn't. And so I would pretty much like be gone all day and just come back to sleep. I wouldn't interact with anybody. I'd go and do stupid shit like I'd go smoke a ton of weed or I'd go, stay over at people's houses without letting anyone know where I was or make decisions that I wouldn't have otherwise made had I not been in the thick of grief.
Well, yeah, it's like that the fuck it's that you're talking about, right? You were
Mhm.
feeling hopeless, you were in grief. It does not sound like you were getting a lot of like healthy support for it. And so like kind of just self-destructing, it sounds
Yeah,
like, which
absolutely.
makes a lot of sense because where else were you gonna put it and you didn't have any healthy outlets, it sounds like.
Yep. Yeah. And then I went to college. I decided to go to college in the same town that the Mayo Clinic is in because it felt like a sign that I'd found this college when my dad was down there for an appointment and like this is where I was meant to be and I was gonna go into the medical field and none of that happened. For me, my dad didn't we didn't go on very many college tours. I mean, my dad
Mhm.
was sick, right? Like and working full time and just trying to survive each day. And of the two him and I went on to together, this was one of them. The University of Minnesota Rochester was one of them. The other one was the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, which was his alma mater. And so
Mm.
I I think I felt like I needed for me to choose between one of those because they'd gotten his blessing, right?
Mm,
And so that was the first criteria for school, and then the second was more of my preferences from there. UMR was just smaller and more medical, and that's what I wanted to. I couldn't handle like the size of UMTC. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be
mhm,
around a lot of people. And I don't know if
mhm,
that stems from like the 3-day long funeral or what, but
mhm.
so that's where I went.
And like, what did your healing look like at that point? Or maybe lack thereof?
Right, like non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I this was never explicitly said to me, but it kind of felt like people were like, "Okay, like stop acting like it just happened." I also didn't tell a lot of like my professors, right? Because I didn't want to be treated the way I was treated at the end of high school, where it was like, "Oh, poor Emily, like her dad just died and she's just 18 years old." Like I didn't want to have the special treatment, like people acting like I was so fragile all the
Mm,
time and pitying me. That was my number one pet peeve through this whole grieving process is when people pity me. Because I didn't want pity, I just wanted care and compassion, which are totally
hmm.
different things.
And were you finding the care and compassion?
No, no. Um, I also enjoyed making people uncomfortable too,
Mm,
which, but yeah, I mean, why have just me be uncomfortable when I can make everyone uncomfortable and then we're all on the same playing field, right?
mhm. Do you think there was, like, a need that was being met by you doing that? I mean, like, yeah, sharing the discomfort, but anything you think, like, underneath that for
I
you?
think, I think it was not to get too therapist-y, but I think it was a trauma response in that, like, it kept people at arm's length because people just
Mhm.
kept like, disappointing me when they tried to
Yeah.
offer support, and so if I made them uncomfortable, then they stayed away, and they would just, not wanna talk about it
Hmm.
or, anything like that. So as to keep people at arm's length, I think.
Yeah, it makes me think about that, whether it's like bullying, right? I'm just gonna say the thing first to kind of take power back in
Mhm.
this thing, right? And you're saying that people don't want to talk about it either way. It's like you taking the power back of like, I'm the one causing the discomfort, so I don't have to be disappointed by them not leaning into me in
Yeah,
my grief, right? So
definitely.
and how common that is. I just did a whole other episode last week where we were talking about, yeah, like different ways that people just kind of, and myself included, have just moved past the like, "Ooh, I don't wanna make people uncomfortable." It's like, I'm just gonna say the thing that I wanna say, and if people get uncomfortable, that's information for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I still get it still gets brought up from time to time, like, I have a tattoo on my chest that's my dad's signature from the last birthday card he ever
Mm,
gave me, and people will they'll just see, like, the top part, or they can just tell I have a tattoo, but they can't read it, and they'll comment on it, and then when I tell them, they're like, "Oh," and then there's just an awkward silence afterwards, and I'm like, "Yep,
uh-huh. Yep, that just happened to me literally 2 days ago with, um, my moose tattoo I have for my sister,
yeah,
and someone was like, "Oh, what's on your wrist?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a moose." They're like, "Oh, like, what's that for?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's for my sister that died." And they're like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yep,
sorry to hear that." I'm like,
yeah,
"Mhm."
same."
Just yep, it's all mhm.
Yeah. So it still happens.
Yeah.
I mean, getting asked about when I had my daughter, like getting asked about, how are your parents, or like,
Mm,
how's your dad like being grandpa? Oh, my dad's dead. Like, yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's those, yeah, secondary losses, right, of the
yeah,
different phases and benchmarks that you've gone through your life, and
absolutely.
I can imagine, like, getting pregnant and having your first kiddo, yeah, brings up a lot with not having parents.
Hmm.
whether just not present and one that's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
So
really hard.
so in my grief, at this point, we're gonna flash forward 2 years, 2015. I'm
Okay.
20, and I don't really remember the first death anniversary day or like the first birthday of his or holidays. Like, I can't really remember those. So we're coming up on the second year anniversary, and on April 12th, 2015, my half brother passed away from alcoholism. So almost 2 years to the day.
Hmm.
And that was just an entirely different experience. I knew nothing about addiction at all. He's my mom's son, and he's 14 years older than me. So he was in the house a little bit when I was little, but not for very long. And I was always really close with him up until probably around when I was like 14. It kind of became not public knowledge, but knowledge within the family that he was an alcoholic. He had had a son a couple years before and was with his son's mom, and they were living together. And then one day, like, she kicked him out, and all of this stuff that I didn't know kind of came to light. He had really bad depression. He was an alcoholic, suicide attempts, and being 14 and learning all of this, I had no idea what to do or
Hmm.
what to say. And it got to the point where I didn't really talk to him anymore because I didn't know what to do or say.
Mhm.
I felt like this person that I knew had been a lie the whole time. And I I hadn't talked to him or seen him since my dad's funeral. Probably was the last time I saw him or
Hmm.
talked to him. And then I got a call from my mom one day that he was dead.
What do you remember feeling in that moment?
Unfortunately, I jumped into caretaker mode. I'd been through this. I knew exactly what to do, right? I knew to call my siblings, my full siblings, and tell them, my sister and brother, and tell them. That's the first thing I did.
Was that something that your mom asked of you, or you were just like, "This is my role"?
That's just self-given rule.
Mhm.
And I don't know because if it's because it felt familiar, because I'd done it before, right? So then it wasn't as scary. I know I can do this because I've done it before, so I'll do this.
Mhm.
It was a known grief. And I took about a week away from college and drove up to stay with my mother at that point, and I raised all of this money to give him a funeral because he had no money and my mom had no money, and planned his whole funeral.
Wow.
So, blessing and a curse that I knew about all of these
Hmm.
things and how to do all these things already, and I was still only 20 and doing this stuff.
And I can imagine that because you were in that role, like, your mom was leaning on you for a lot of this, and it sounds like that relationship's pretty complicated.
She was catatonic. I mean,
Mm.
just
Huh.
yeah, I mean, he had been living with her, so I don't know. I mean, and we never really talked about it. I also never got any, even 10 years later now at this point, I've never gotten any thank yous or gratitude or acknowledgement of doing all of that for her.
Wow.
And she was in her late 50s. I mean, I get it. Grief is grief, and a 20-year-old should not be planning her brother's funeral.
And that does that relationship stay complicated?
That relationship is non existent
Non-existent.
by my choice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How long after your half brother died that you made that decision?
probably the beginning of 2018, so less than 3 years afterwards. One, because of the verbal and emotional abuse that I would receive from her, and also because she kept drinking, alcoholically kept drinking, and I could not understand that, having watched your own child die from alcoholism, literally drink himself to death,
Right,
and you're going to choose to continue to do that when
right.
you have other children.
Hmm.
It didn't compute to me, and so it got to a breaking point where I had received a voicemail from her one day when I didn't call her back immediately, telling me I was an ungrateful bitch, and at that point, I was like, "Nope, I'm done with this." It was kinda like a switch flipped.
Wow, so fucking painful, especially because what you're saying, even the not having any gratitude or appreciation for everything you did, right? You didn't do those things to get a thank you, but, like, some
Right.
acknowledgement of the position that you were in, and then to be also called ungrateful doesn't
Yeah.
quite compute.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do those things for her. I
No.
did those things for my brother to give him, like, the celebration of the end of his
Mhm.
life that he deserved. I mean, I got thousands of dollars, like, given from all of his friends and all these people that just loved him to do this, and people who loved me, who helped, like, my childhood church where we had had my dad's first funeral. They offered to let me have the funeral there at no cost, and they would do a luncheon, and they would provide all the food at no
Mm,
cost. I
wow.
mean, yeah, all of these people just stepped up for me in that regard. And these were people who are probably, at least on my people in my life, they probably were there or attempted to be there more than when my dad died than
Mm,
other people did. It just felt different. The grief of my brother felt different, and I think it's because it wasn't as impactful, and I don't even know if that's the right word. Just maybe I haven't even felt it yet. 10 years later, I think maybe there's just a part of me that shut that off.
mhm.
It wasn't the same grief. It wasn't the earth-shattering, life-destroying grief in the same way.
Is there a way that you have, like, continued to, I guess, question for both your dad and your brother, but, um, that you've continued to honor them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do what I do for my brother, being a therapist in the addiction and mental health field.
Mhm,
My goal coming into this field, because it was initially, I started with my addiction therapist license, was just to prevent what happened to my brother from happening to anyone else. If I could save one person's life, like, because it was so preventable. If I could do that, then I felt like I was honoring him. And now
mm,
I'm 8 years plus in the field, and still that's probably my number one goal, is just to prevent, you know, what happened to my brother from happening where I can.
hmm. Yeah. I'm curious, and maybe this is a place where we kind of diverge, but
Yeah.
I I think on certain days, right, I feel the same way that you're feeling, and then there's other days where I'm like, I am, whether, preventing or helping people change their lives, helping people, save their own lives from this, and I couldn't even do that for my sister, and I actually, like, have moments of feeling, I don't know if resentment, maybe resentment, I mean, guilt, shame for sure, but, like,
Mhm.
resentment that these people are getting it
Mhm.
and getting the help, and my sister didn't. Those are definitely more painful days for me that I'm not just living in the, like, if I can just help this person, then
Yeah.
I'm doing good work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, similarly, the biggest resentment I have, and maybe this also adds to choosing to end my relationship with my mother, was that she was the bad parent and got to stay alive, and my dad was the good parent and died.
Yeah.
That I actually continue to struggle with. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, no, that is so common. I don't know if you've seen or heard, but in the grief community, there's something that we call, like, grief secrets, and that's one that comes up a lot. It's like the wrong parent died, or the person I'd rather still be here isn't.
Mhm.
And yeah, like, again, maybe the guilt and shame and resentment that comes up with that, and
Absolutely.
how incredibly common that is. And I was also just thinking, going back to about your mom, I think some people look at the loss that I'm gonna say we, because we
Mhm.
both lost a parent, we both lost a sibling, and people on the surface who maybe don't get it can be like, "So you've 2 people in your life have died. Like, how on earth could you choose to be estranged and not connected to someone in your family?"
Mhm.
And almost like the judgment that
Mhm.
comes from people. And so I'm just thinking about that too. Like,
Oh,
people
absolutely.
just don't fucking get it. Like, at least they're still alive, right? Like, why would you not want the family that's still physically present?
Yeah. And I mean, for me, had I chosen to go live with my mom after my dad died, I would have been right there with my brother.
Mm,
I that would have been the worst decision I could have ever made for myself. And quite frankly, she should have been cut off long before she was, given like I said, the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse, the lack of being a mother.
mhm,
Like, yeah, in title, she is my mother, right? I grew inside of her body and she had me, and yeah, I that's the thing, is like when I do get those kinds of comments, I also lose my ability to filter and almost come to the defense of my dad in that situation
mm,
and myself. Sometimes I wonder why I still give energy to that, because like you said, they don't get it.
I don't get it. Yeah. There's just so much, I feel like, misunderstanding out there. And, there's like a lot of, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a lot of research coming out about, I think specifically our generation, at like higher rates, people choosing to go no contact
Mhm.
with parents. And
Absolutely.
when a adult child says that they like are no longer connected to one of their parents, the common answer is like, why would you do that, right? Very few people ask, like, what could have a parent done to you
Mhm.
that would empower you to make that decision, right? Like, flipping the script on, like, it's not like you're the one that's, like, damaged Emily because you made this decision.
Right.
It's wow, like, somebody must have done something incredibly hurtful and harmful that you
Yeah.
made a really hard decision for yourself.
Yeah, yikes. Right, especially now as a mother, I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. I
Yeah.
cannot imagine that.
Like, you treating your daughter the way that
Yeah,
your mom treated you. Yeah.
yeah, and choosing to not be there for her and give her the emotional stability, the physical stability, the financial stability, the all of it. Like, I can't
Mhm.
imagine not giving that to her, like,
Yeah.
choosing not to do that, which
Right.
is what it was, right? Like,
Mhm.
like I shared the tail end, but like this was years, 10, 15 years in the making,
Mm-hmm.
this decision. This was not like one day I just decided for fun.
No, no, no.
So, and
Yeah.
there's grief that comes with that too,
Yes.
in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also kind of been my goal too in like the mental health sphere of like grief does not mean somebody died. Like that's
Yeah.
not the only thing that causes grief.
No. Yeah, and just to build off that too as we're wrapping up is yeah, grief is not just about death. It's we can have grief over endless things.
Mm-hmm.
And something else again to build on that I make sure I share with people as well is and I know you can relate to this, just because we feel grief doesn't mean it was the wrong decision,
Right.
right? We leave a
Absolutely.
relationship. There's grief. I think sometimes people, because we live in such a black and white society where people feel like, oh, I feel grief or sadness. That means I must have made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
No, ending a relationship, for example, or choosing to go no contact with your mom, like there is grief and, right? And not but. It wasn't the wrong decision. Like both can be true.
Absolutely.
And I just think people get so stuck. Like, oh, I feel sad, and so I guess I'm supposed to be back in the relationship, or I should call my mom.
And that keeps us also in a different kind of grief too.
Hmm.
You know, the grief of like, this is what my life. If you feel you made the wrong decision, you end no contact or go back to a
Hmm.
relationship. There's grief around that of like, I don't feel like I have a choice.
Yeah.
And then if you live with the grief, the questions or grieving like what you thought life would be or look like
Hmm.
or your expectations or yeah, we could talk for 5 more hours about that.
I know. We absolutely could. Well, I think we did a really important overview. I think all of these, I always get to this point of like I could keep talking
Yeah.
to the person for so long because we've identified and identify, I think, in every single episode that I've recorded is there are so many similarities and threads. And in our situation, again, like the physical people that we have lost
Mhm.
to cancer, to overdose, like
Mhm.
there's a lot of very strong threads. And right, our stories look different in different ways. And then there's so many similarities and things that connect us. And
Yeah.
even in other episodes and people I talk to that the loss is so different, like having these conversations, we get to have that basic reminder of we don't need to be as alone
Yeah.
as we feel. And whether it's been 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, having these conversations are just so important. And so, like I already said, I'm just really grateful that, especially for you, Emily, someone who was raised in a family that you're like, don't talk about it. You're getting to change that narrative. You're getting to have a corrective experience by saying, nope, I'm going to talk about these things
Yeah.
and reaching out to me and volunteering to come on for an episode. I just really appreciate you. And I appreciate you being able to share some of your experience.
Well, and I have to give that appreciation right back too because had I had what you're doing during
Mm,
this, it would have been so healing and
yeah.
to have that even if it wasn't like physically in person to
Hmm.
have a voice of somebody saying this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
You're not alone in this. This isn't an abnormal experience.
Hmm.
That would have changed so much. And so
Yeah.
I'm so so grateful for what you're doing
Hmm.
for
Thank
the
you.
whole grief community and people who are
Mhm.
just kind of getting into this world of grief. It's
Yeah.
huge. It's huge.
Thank you. I say this often. I, in some ways, feel like I'm doing this for my 23-year-old self,
Mhm.
where, again, at least my more acute grief journey kind of started with my mom's diagnosis and
Yeah.
not having resources. And there
Yeah.
weren't. podcasts, there's so
Yeah.
much more available now, which I'm grateful for. But like, it's like a corrective experience for me too, because I know how deeply I needed something like this. And so to be able to create it with you and all of my other guests that come on to help someone else, maybe like you're saying, not feel as alone if they're going through things right now. That's what I want to be doing. And again, honoring that part of me all along the way. So, and I think you got to honor the younger parts of yourself today too by doing this.
I have goosebumps right now.
Oh, me too. Shared goosebumps. Well, Emily, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Claire.
So that's all for this episode of Nothing Happens for a Reason. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe and leave us a review. It truly helps our community grow. You can also follow the official Nothing Happens for a Reason Instagram account and sign up for our newsletter to be the first to hear about new episodes, exciting additions to the podcast, and special giveaways. And finally, if you know someone who might find solace or understanding here, especially as they navigate grief, please share this podcast with them. I deeply appreciate your support. We'll be back with a new episode next Thursday.